Rage on that beat, going crazy.
Yeah, awesome.
Uh-oh, we're being
All right,
recorded.
never fails. Tonight, we're with Brian Stokl, A.K.A. BTC, A.K.A. Brian the Carpenter. He's joining us tonight, and we are going to be talking to Brian about Brian the Angler, not Brian the fake producer,
Right.
not Brian the man of many talents, and Brian the man that juggles too many things in his days and nights and has no time left for himself. So, Brian, I'm going to just give you a little bit of, we almost talked for a second, but you were like, shut it down. Let's keep it fresh. I agree. So I'll tell you, for me, I'm a classically trained graphic designer, and I've been fishing. I started fishing, I'm going to say, well, 70s, for bluegill at the local pond with like cane poles, but where I was like, thought I was Bill Dance Jr. was probably early 80s. When I started like, reading In Fisherman and watching everything I could on TV. And I gobbled it up. And so it's been with me all these years. Like, it's just been like a way that like I sort of, with all the sports and all the activities and all the other things I've done, it's always been the thing that I sort of escape from life with. And I've always turned to angling to just, and bass fishing, to just sort of like reset myself. And it was kind of my alone time. So I have a full, I'm like you, I'm a 9-to-5 full-time job guy. And, but I'm a graphic designer, and I wanted to make what I would call a love letter to like vintage bass fishing, like that era of like the 70s, even the 60s, 70s, 80s, that vintage vibe. I just loved the design back then, and I loved kind of everything about the sport. It just seemed innocent, and like the, like technology sort of hadn't intruded on it yet. So it was still like, it was like print media, crusty TV shows. So I wanted this to be, one, a love letter to that, and two, it wasn't just about me doing graphic design and branding anglers, because I do that. I wanted something that was an umbrella for the branding, the design, but also I just like talking fishing with everyone and talking about everything about the sport. And one thing that I really like, and the graphic design plays into this, is I like to promote other people and find out about them and what makes them tick. So I use this as sort of a way for me, not just to promote like my vision of like fishing and graphic design and branding for other people, but I like just, sharing everyone's vision of the sport and what it brings to their life, and everyone's own angle, if that makes sense. Like, I just like to sort of get into, where does angling fit into other people's lives, and like, what does it bring to their lives? So that's, why I wanted to talk to you today. So.
Right on, man. That's pretty cool. A couple questions for you, since we're doing this get to know each other thing.
Yeah, man.
What does a classically designed graphic designer really mean?
Well, I went to school for design, and when I went to school, computers were just starting to make inroads. So the way we learned was we did everything by hand. So if I was going to do like, let's say a magazine page layout, I would go take the photographs with a film camera, develop the film in the dark room. Then I would print out, type, and cut out all the letters and all the words with an X-Acto knife, tiny, like a book, and lay it out line by line on my designs, then put them on a photostat machine. So it was super time consuming and wasteful because computers were coming. But what that does is when you have to do everything by hand and it's all manual, then it gives you an appreciation for like literally like the space between each letter on everything you do. Like you don't just type something in and take it for granted. Like when you're on a computer, you can just type in like, here's my typography. We had to learn to set everything by hand, like every letter.
Yeah.
You know? And do our own illustrations. So you kind of had to be like a jack of all trades. You had to know a little bit about illustration, a little bit about painting, a little bit about photography, and then how to compile it all and compose a message. And then so I was always kind of into the like the skate culture. Like, you know, when I was in high school, like I was a skate rat.
Yeah.
That was my thing. And I had a really rad dad that built me like a ridiculous half pipe in the back.
Oh yeah.
I had like I had like a legit, like he put 30 railroad posts in concrete in our backyard. So like this thing was like dead level and had
really?
like no shit. Yeah, my dad was nuts. Like he was like a total.
What did he do for a living?
He went to school as a draftsman. He actually got out of college and went to be a draftsman. And then he went back to school 10 years later and became a teacher. Then he went into clothing sales and did that for 15 years. He commuted to Manhattan every day, I think, for 15 years, all through the 70s. So I would be home with my mom watching Planet of the Apes, Star Trek, you know, James T. Kirk. My mom would let me stay up past when I should be up because I'd be like, you know, I was born in 71. I don't know what year you were born.
72.
72. Yeah. So my mom she kind of didn't like being alone. So I was like 4 or 5 and I was up watching, you know, Star Trek with her and, you know, Planet of the Apes stuff. And
dude, I loved Planet of the Apes. I had
right.
I had that set.
Oh, you had that?
Well, I had.
Yeah.
It might even be still at my mom's. But
dude, no, my Millennium Falcon is gone.
Oh yeah.
Dude, that thing's gone. I remember I was devastated. It was at my grandmother's house, and I remember the back that came off so you could like put everyone in it.
Yeah.
I put that stupid thing on top of a lamp, like just to hold it somewhere. And I went back like an hour later, and it was like melted. I was devastated.
Evel Knievel. I had that. I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I could just remember setting up in the basement with, you know, we had a tile floor in the basement and just setting up ramps and winding it up and letting that thing go. And, oh, dude, that was the best.
Yeah, that company also made. You remember they made a blue chopper that didn't have Evel Knievel on it. It was like it was the same exact company, same thing, but it was a chopper. Had the longer forks on the front.
I do not remember that. No.
No.
Stretch Armstrong was that time period. But here's one. So. Do you remember a movie called Humanoids from the Deep?
I watch all that stuff. The name itself isn't ringing. The name itself rings a bell, but I can't put like imagery to it. But I watched literally all that. You want to talk about Planet of the Apes? See this font?
Yeah,
the angler. That's
it.
The Planet of the Apes font. I put that in there because that's the homage. You know what I mean? Because I always thought, you know, I always thought that was just such cool imagery in Planet of the Apes.
Yep.
And
I agree, man. It was an awesome movie and a couple movies, right? At least 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4. There were 4, 5.
Was there that many?
The first, yeah, there were 4 or 5, but like, you know, the first couple were the ones that were really strong. So yeah, there's a strong Planet of the Apes thing that I weave through the branding and the 70s and old toys. And because, you know, to me, you know, for people our age, like fishing, it's like kind of a toy. Like, let's be honest, when we buy stuff, like we're kind of getting toys. Because we're like, you know what I mean? It like, you know, the Evel Knievel bike or a new reel, it's still, you know, look what this thing does. It turns. It's got some carbon fiber on it. It clicks.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's a sport, but the toys that come with the sport, it's still like buying toys because there's such a variety. Like if you play any other sport like hockey and you get 3 different pucks, they're all a black circle.
Yeah.
But with fishing gear, it's like I got a top water and it comes in 25 colorways.
Oh yeah.
Or
I
whatever.
mean, I cringe to kind of really show off. This is my garage.
Right.
This is a little bar. This was my COVID project at the beginning of the lockdown, and I only locked down for maybe a couple weeks and had to get back after it. But my boat's sitting right here. I'll give a quick look, but it's
I enjoyed that build. That build was rad watching that.
But this is where I've been all day working on paperwork and stuff.
That's a good desk to have.
It's really is. It's a great desk. I think everybody should have a boat.
Yeah, everyone should have a desk like that. Plus, I loved watching you install that deck padding.
Yeah.
It was very satisfying seeing like the cutout logo when it was going in. It reminded me of those things you used to have when you were a kid. Remember those foam puzzles we had as kids?
That's right. Yep.
And you would like smush the layers in.
I've got way too much stuff. Tackle.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, it's not as sloppy as like some other people that we know.
It's pretty sloppy. Right? It's pretty bad.
Yeah,
it's pretty bad, and I think I need to get rid of about half of it or something, or 2/3, because I end up tinkering so damn much, and which is okay, except for if you're trying to win a tournament. You know what I mean? And probably 1/10 of the time that tinkering works out, and most of the time it just leads you in circles, and then the tournament ended. You know what I mean?
But again, it's playing, and it's
it's
grown up,
fun.
An outlet for us. So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you just a few background questions.
Yeah, go ahead. And
pertaining to fishing. So
go ahead.
I want to know what got you started, because there's I didn't have anybody in my family that fished. I had hunters and fishermen, but they were all in Western PA. No influence on me whatsoever here in southeastern Pennsylvania.
Yinzers.
Yinzers. Right? I'm Yinzer blood, mom and dad.
That's right.
So I didn't know there was a Philadelphia Eagles until I want to say like 80 when they made it to the Super Bowl.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, my fantasy football team was called Tofu Scramblers, and it was I did this awesome logo of silhouette of Randall doing one of his crazy scrambles. To me, that's the birds. It's Buddy Ryan and Randall and Reggie White. That's my era. I'm more interested in hurting Dallas than actually winning a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As long as someone on Dallas was laid out, I was like, we won. But yeah, so I just grew up around a lot of water. I grew up right on the Delaware Canal. So I would just, I would make fishing poles out of bamboo, and then I would just, my parents would be nice enough that I'd go to like some sporting goods store, like I can't even remember the name of it. It's a weird sporting goods store before there was a Dick's, but I got like a spinning rod, and then I caught like a fish on my own, and I thought I was like, that was it. Like I picked out my first lure, picked out my first rod, went by myself and caught a bass. And I was like, before that, it was like all sunfish. And I was probably in I want to say I was in like 3rd grade. And I was like, oh, I did that. And then it was like, after that, I couldn't get enough. Like I was just, anytime I was in any sporting goods store, I was like, what's this going to do for my fishing, and all the articles. So what got you started? Like, did you have a family member, or was it like you discovered it on your own, or just friends?
I think the way I look at it, or the way you're born with it. It's just something that you're born with. My dad wasn't around. My older brother is 12 years older than me, so by the time I'm 10, he's 22,
That's a gap.
And he's off at college, you know.
Yep.
And he was, you know, and honestly, he was more of the father figure anyhow. When you know, somewhat. It's funny. I was going to bring this up at the end, but the reason I brought up Humanoids from the Deep, that was like the first movie that my brother got me out of bed to let me watch a rated R movie when mom went to sleep. And there was boobies. Yeah. I remember the opening scene. There was boobies. So I was very excited about that.
When you were a kid, that was like, you know, especially in like the 80s, like if you stumbled on that on like HBO or Prism or something, like you hit the lottery.
Yeah, sent me off on the wrong path for the next 40 years, you know.
This is on TV. That's pretty cool though. Yeah, but things like that, you know, those are what define and shape us.
Yeah.
You probably like those kind of movies still because of your brother.
Yes, boobies. I love booby movies.
Yeah. Well, we grew up, dude, our era. Remember all that? Porkies and Zap. That's like all the movies were about.
Boobs.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It's
not like
agree.
that anymore.
No, it's weird.
So you found it.
I couldn't honestly point to a particular time. I just anytime I got near water, I had to be. I'd just drawn to the water, and I don't know who. You know, it would have been my mom. You know, took me fishing, but I just knew that was what I needed to do. That's where, if we were at a park and there was water, I was at the water.
Because as a kid, you're like, you know, I understand squirrels and I understand cats and dogs because we all live on top of the earth and we breathe air. But there was something about, like, for me, it was the mystery. Like, what's under the water? Like, it lives under there all year. And it's swimming around, and I want to like catch it and see it. And that's like, that always appealed to me. Anytime we were at anyone's house, if there was like, you know, a pond nearby or something, I'd be like, what do you think's in there? You know, I just always thought that was really cool. And that's definitely what attracted me to fishing. It wasn't like a family tradition fishing. It was like, I was like, dude, this is awesome. Like there's things that swim in water and I get to catch them and hold them for a second.
Yeah, it's just like I said, you know, for me, and you know, just something you're born with, you know.
It is.
For whatever reason, that's that, and you know, nowadays you got you got a lot of ways to get fishing. The big one being YouTube. Certainly in our day, there was Saturday morning fishing on TV or whatever, or Sunday.
That was it.
But a lot of kids, you know, credit YouTubers for getting them into it, which is awesome, man. That's great that they do that. You know, for me, we didn't have it, but I didn't need it. You know, it's just something, again, I got into it because of the love of fishing and like you said, the mystery of what's under the water, you know.
That defines it for me, but it's good. You know, I mean, I've got little ones, and in this age of getting lost in tech, I know it sounds like, you know, everybody talks like this, but there was something really cool about getting lost outside and trying to, like, to me, it's a puzzle fishing. Like, it's a puzzle, and everyone likes a puzzle because, like, you know, if someone leaves you go to a friend's house and they've got a jigsaw puzzle out on the table, you'll go over and look and see if you can fit one piece in. Like, it's just natural, you know, and fishing's like that. So, you know, we do a lot of desperate things as anglers, especially when we're young and we live in New Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania. And it's just
say desperate things.
Desperate.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so you ready for this?
Yeah.
The best as seen on TV lure that you ever used. Which one did you ever get one that worked?
As seen on TV?
Yeah. Remember those? Remember those commercials?
Yeah,
the flying lure, the banjo, you know.
Yeah, flying lure, helicopter lure, banjo.
Doug Hannon snake. Remember that snake with the hard head and the big.
That would be the only one I've actually ever used.
Yeah, see, I fell for
snake?
3.
Oof.
That snake, I bought that snake.
I had 3 of them. But when that snake came out, there was very limited. There was no frogs back then. There was really no topwater baits. That snake did get bit.
Yeah, from what I've heard, it did. My first, I didn't have any good luck with it. The other thing I
No?
used to do is, oh yeah, no, because I'd be like 12. There was magazines, but there wasn't like any information. So I remember like the first time I tied on a spinnerbait, I think it was like a half-ounce spinnerbait. It was like salad green, but like mint salad green. And I was throwing it on probably like 12-pound line on a 6-foot spinning rod.
Monofilament,
Yeah, dude. I had to figure it all out. I remember
for sure.
the flying lure, if you remember that one.
I do.
One, it had the weird hook with the weird weight, and it would go like I remember that was on when I was in college. It'd be on late night TV.
I think that bait would have caught on in mainstream fishing if they didn't go the as seen for TV cheese route.
Yeah, because it was basically a flat
design
tube.
Yeah, and it goes backwards, and there's something to that. But they sold a lot of stuff to people that can't catch them no matter what you do off of TV, and the rest of the industry shunned it. So they made their cheesy money, but it's short lived.
They did.
Stay there because of the flying lure's unique action. It glides forward, jig it back, glides forward, jig it back. Multiple falls on a single cast. It stays in the fish's face. They've got to bite it. This is the kind of control you've always wanted, the kind of control you should have in a lure, backwards and forward. You know you've never had it before. Well, now you do with the flying lure. And the flying lure is great for beginners. Just lift up the rod tip and let it down, and the flying lure looks, acts, even feels just like live bait, fishing itself with pre-programmed action. And it doesn't require skillful casting. You can get the flying lure into hard-to-reach hiding places with ease when no one else can. Your cast simply continues underwater because of the flat, precision-weighted, patented design. It moves through the water just like a glider flies through the air, going forward away from you while it gently falls right into the fish's face. The flying lure doesn't sink straight down like conventional lures. The flying lure goes where no other lure has gone before.
That one worked though, and it looked good, and it was like actually a soft plastic. And then I did the banjo minnow, which is basically that's a nose hooked fluke. Remember the banjo minnow was like a
I do, but again, I kind of shunned all that stuff. How exactly
it was
did that go?
Like when you nose hook a fluke now, that's what you're doing. It was like a 2-aught or a 3-aught drop shot hook with a minnow. Okay, so you have the nose hooked minnow. Yeah. And then on the eye of the hook, there was a tiny, remember kids that had braces, the rubber bands?
Yeah.
You remember those?
Yeah, oh yeah.
With a little rubber band that went from the eye of the hook, and you hung it on the barb. So it was weedless.
Oh yeah,
It had a rubber band on a little tiny, imagine like a little circle hook, like a 2-aught circle.
Yeah.
With a minnow on it. So that's a nose hooked fluke, and it was weedless. It was just that the plastic of the minnow was like too rigid. It wasn't like a Zoom super fluke where it's like blue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like a cheaper
plastic.
Yeah. And that's why it didn't work. But other than that, that thing would have been lights out if they'd have used soft rubber on it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So then if we're going backwards, I'm gonna just take you back right here, okay? Best toy of the 70s.
Oh, best toy. I mean, Stretch Armstrong comes to mind.
I had that. Did you ever cut one open?
No.
It was like red gel, like it looked like jelly inside of it.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm surprised I never cut one open. Yeah. I'm disappointed in myself.
Too, dude.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, see, did you ever have friends that had a toy that you were like, that you were so mad you never got it in the 70s? Like I remember I had a friend that had one of those little cars that had the electric battery in it. And I was like, yeah. Wanted one of those. I never got one. I still hold that envy in me. Like I'm still like, I'll see a kid.
You talk about the ones you sit in or
yeah, you sit in it and it was like a car battery and it would.
Yeah. No, I never had any of that.
I
don't know how mom did it, but she raised us on the road.
Yeah. No, it's not easy.
I had shoe goo and I had shoe goo and duct tape to keep my sneakers going. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Shoe goo.
Remember shoe goo?
Yeah, man.
When you wear a hole in your sneakers and you need to
I used it
put a sole back on it.
Skating, I always was wearing holes through the soles of the shoes, and I would try to put shoe goo on the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. That and some duct tape and, keep it going. And then when you can't go no more, then they become your hockey sneakers and
Yeah.
whatever. But
Then long
nah,
sneakers.
yeah. Yeah. No, toys wise, I mean, no, it was pretty much just
Well, we grew
had
up
the
during a
things we
good
talked
time for
about.
them because they were still dangerous back then. Like lawn
Yeah.
darts and things
Jarts.
would I remember things would shoot like hard plastic. And
Oh
we
yeah.
could play with that, like those little guns that shoot the little hard plastic BBs. They weren't BBs that would hurt you, but they were
Yeah.
hard
You're
enough
right.
that they were a
Yep.
total choking hazard. But we could get away with all that stuff in the 70s.
You're right.
Then the
yeah.
80s, everything got safe, and they made Boba Fett's missile not come out of his back. Remember that? They welded it in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
okay, go ahead.
when did you get so the angling bug? Do you remember when it kind of bit hard for you?
Hit hard. So all right. So grade school is kindergarten through fifth.
Right.
And then middle school is 6, 7, 8, and then high school 9 through 12.
Yeah.
So in the town I grew up in Runnymede, there were two grade schools, and then we all went to one middle school. So when we went to that middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th, that's where I met Ike for the first time. And that's what really brought him and I and Dave and our other buddy Tom. And Dave is always, people would know him from the Ike Live show, Stormtrooper. Yep. But that's where we all kind of realized, all right, man, we like to fish, and also we like to play hockey. Dave wasn't so much the hockey guy, but me, Mike, and Tom were. And that's what kind of brought us together because there was nobody else that fished. So it was the four of us and Rick King, rest his soul.
You were lucky. That's a big crew for back then for fishing. You were lucky to have that. I had two friends that would do it with me, but weren't as obsessed, but they loved it, but they weren't smitten with it. You were lucky to find even that big. That was like a skate crew. There's 4
on
or 5
the down low. Yeah. On the DL.
Yeah.
But that's what brought us together was we like to fish. I remember Mike took me up to the Poconos. His grandparents had a place up in the Poconos. Took me there one time and brought me home early from the trip because I caught an 8-pound brown trout on this lake, bigger than anything he had caught. So I swear he did it on purpose.
Oh, you mean he just bailed out of frustration?
Nah, that's what it seemed like. I never got an invite back.
Yeah.
You remember the Rapala 9S?
Yes.
That was one of our first baits. Was that like a hard lure? Yeah. I
just fished everywhere around here, and I had an uncle that lived up just west of the Poconos, and they used to rent out a campground, and I remember they took.
That was where we went to Poconos.
I think it was like a Kmart or some kind of big box store, and I went in, and my parents had given me money to get a lure. And I remember I got a Rapala silver and black. I can't remember which number. I want to say it was a 9. It might have been a 7. But he took me to this campsite. All the kids are cooking hot dogs, eating marshmallows, running around like Indians. I'm with my uncle. And dude, the whole campground was having the best night. And I was like, whatever that is, there's a pond on this campground, a big one. You could not get me off it. I was there sunset, working that Rapala, and then I caught my first decent bass on that by myself, and I was just felt like such a man. You know what I mean? I was 12 years old, first time away from home from my parents, and I caught this, fish, and I was like, that was another defining moment. And those, I'm sure those still work.
Really, they really do. Yeah, and it was a top water, pop it and come right back up.
You get it down almost a foot if you were lucky.
Yeah, it was a catch 'em all. That was one of the first. Chris, I'm gonna grab a beer, but I'm
Go
still
for it. Yeah, man.
so
Take your time.
actually, yeah, I don't know what your next topic is on your sheet, but I was actually curious, like, what was your progression as far as, like I just mentioned, the Rapala, like what was your progression on the first bass baits you got into? Because I remember ours, where it started and where it kind of kept going and going.
All right, do it.
Go ahead, tell us about it.
Oh, okay.
Tell the people.
Well, being an artist, I would get suckered by appearances.
Yes.
And I think that still happens to me today. But
full lips in a big backyard get you every time, right?
Right. So my first lures were I thought they had to look like a real thing, and that was all that was going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually Rapalas at the store. I would go and I would look at the ones and I would just be like, what looks like a miniature fish? And I caught fish on those. Then I thought I was smart. Then I thought, oh, like, I got this. So I started watching, guys on TV and reading In Fisherman, not realizing most of these people were from the Midwest or the South, and that these techniques are not like, when I say I'm from southeastern Pennsylvania, like I grew up where if I was sitting on the couch watching TV, I was looking across the river at Trenton. So I grew up right across from Trenton, literally like right on the Delaware there. Cheers. So, yeah. So I got too smart for myself and started like buying spinner baits and like all the Bill Dance, like, big crankbaits, everything that worked for those guys on TV. And then I would take it down to the Delaware Canal or the Delaware River, and like it just didn't catch fish. And then I was fishing with a buddy that was on the street, and he pulled out a plastic worm. And it was like a man's, but it wasn't the giant ones. It was like probably a 7-inch with like a curl tail. Like it was clear blue with a pink tail. I remember that.
Okay, so was it the auger tail worm?
Yeah.
Because the auger tail went up and came down almost as far as. Okay, so if it was a 7-inch worm, it'd be like 4 inches of worm and then 3 inches in the tail kind of returned.
I was a kid, so I can't remember. I feel like Mr. Twister made it, but I don't know, dude. It was like, no, it was not an auger, because I could, could be like a Bigfoot sighting where I don't remember perfectly. But I remember there being like 1.5 inches of clear pink tail on a clear blue worm. And I want to say it was Mann, because the dude's last name was Mann too. So I don't know. But he caught, like looking back now, knowing what I know about bass, it was like a 6 or a 7. And we were in grade school. That's all I remember, like 4th-ish grade. And he caught that. And I was like, plastic worms are where it's at. Then it was just,
they were.
So then it was just plastic worms. Anything that was translucent and 2 colors, I thought was fire. Like I'm like, everything was on like a 3 or 4/0, whatever that hook was, the J bend with the little boop boop. And
say it again. The hook?
Like the standard worm hook that you think of, like a perfect J bend. Like it'd be the equivalent of like a 3/0 or 4/0 now, and then just had the little 90-degree bend. And I remember they were blue steel, like gun, like that.
Yeah. Like they were blued.
They were blued.
I remember that.
And like, I think probably because I was an idiot, I think I was just throwing, like, it wasn't True Term. Dude, I didn't have a budget. I just got like.
No, I know. I'm just trying to figure out what they were called. Yeah.
It looks like worm hooks now. Just it was blue steel, and then I would put. Yeah. I think I was probably putting too big of worm weights on, because I'm sure as like a 12-year-old, I was putting like 1/4 ounce weights on it. But whatever, it worked.
Yeah, our progression kind of. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and then I kind of got away from that, like when I got into college, it was like, you know, I went to Penn State, but in the summers when I was home, I was all about fishing. Like for those like 2 months that I wasn't at school, I was like, I want to go fishing as many times as I can. And that's when I started figuring out Berkeley power bait craws for smallmouth.
Mm-hmm.
And their power bait made these black leeches. And it went like this. They were tiny and it was flat. It was like a leech. And like I was catching smallmouth on those. So I got all into it. So yeah, I think my evolution stopped at like soft plastic. That's where my confidence was. And treble hook bait. You know, I went through tons of like all the Rebel crick hoppers and every bug that they made when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Remember they would make the Helgramite or whatever, the
Helgramite. Yeah.
I don't remember what else they made, but those worked. And then you know, then I started getting confidence in my 20s and like doing like, you know, techniques where I was like, okay, I'm going to start fishing jigs now and top waters. And then, you know, I mean, it was just a constant evolution. And then, you know, as I got into my late 20s, this is probably late 90s, that's when I kind of knew what I was doing. You know, at that point, I think 90, I was a late bloomer. I think I didn't get my first bait caster till 91 or 92. And I caught my first like giant on a snag proof hollow bodied frog in 92. Do you remember the hollow bodied snag proof that had the two hooks, but they weren't the big hooks by today's standards.
Nah.
And
the package said Big Bass Love a Frog.
Yeah, and it was a dome clear thing.
Yep.
And I still have one because I caught my PB on that, but I was fishing it on like a rod that was like a medium heavy.
Your PB to date?
Yeah.
Same.
Delaware Canal, summer of 1993, in muck with 12-pound line on do you remember the Rhino rods with the double trigger?
Yeah.
Two finger trigger.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, with it was an Abu Garcia bait caster, 12-pound line. And I remember it was the first hollow bodied frog I was fishing, and I was noticing pike were blowing up on it and bass were chasing it. And I was not hooking up. I couldn't figure out the hook set. Like, I mean, fish would grab it and I would see them turn. And I know now I was using too spongy of a rod, but I got lucky and I just pulled it over like flop. And my rod just buckled and I buckled. And I remember I couldn't get it out of the slop. I had to literally I had to hand line it, pulled it up out of the slop, and I had to hold it in its mouth with two thumbs. And I was so nervous. I was shaking and I couldn't believe an animal that big grew in water here. And like I tested it. I put my whole fist in its mouth. I mean, you know, I didn't have a scale back then. No cameras. Dude, right. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what the state record was till a few years later when we got this thing called the internet.
Yeah.
And I looked
it was a lot of years later. Yeah.
Yeah, because I caught that fish in 93, and then I like think around like 97, I looked it up, and I was like, well, it wasn't 12 pounds. I know that. Right. But it was definitely like, it was probably 8 something. It was like I haven't seen one that big in person.
Yeah.
Anywhere. I haven't seen another person catch one like that. It was like holding a dog, and I felt so bad for it that as soon as I got it out, I mean, it just was massive head, massive eyes looking at me, and I felt this like guilt of like, oh my God, like put this bear back in the water. Like the bigger they are, the more like sensitive I am to the fact that they're like an animal and it's not like it's like a fish. You know what I mean? I was like, like, you know, I took like a person out of the water, like get them back in there. So yeah,
well, that's a good thing usually.
Yep, no cameras, nothing. It was, you know, it was 93. I was walking the canal with 2 rods, a spinning rod and a bait caster and a whole bunch of baits. But you know, then, you know, sickness sets in and you start getting like really into tackle. Then you discover the internet. then you discover tackle tour, and then the next thing you know, like, you've got a tackle problem. So
indeed.
yeah.
So I think the first thing that we really was a white grub. Was a little like 1 or 2 inch grub on a ball head.
Mr. Twister?
Yeah.
But you guys were ahead of the game. Your posse, I think, figured stuff out. Like I
the future Bassmaster Classic champion I'm rolling with. You know what I'm saying, bro?
Yeah, but it was all of you. It was a collective of minds.
It was.
You guys were all so desperate to catch these things that you guys were like, what do we, like, let's figure something out to get these things out of the water. That was the idea. You wanted to see what was in the water. And as a collective, you guys were trying to figure it out.
So the white grub, that was something, you just cast and wine and catch everything in the lake with.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's
crappie, perch, bluegill, bass.
That's a Ned rig now, really. I mean, the Ned rig baits are taking that path where they have a little bit of a kicker tail, a ball head, essentially.
Yep. From there, I mean, the 9S Rapala, that was probably the next thing, and then what really got it going was throwing a man's jelly worm on the split shot rig, and the first like year probably of doing it was with like Mustad would have those packs of hooks, with the leader on it.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was like, it was really adopted from, clear blue fluorescent sometimes. But it was really adopted from like trout fishing, with a, a number 8 hook and a split shot and corn or whatever. It was way for power bait. But it was a split shot rig, a split shot about a foot up or a little more. And that number 8 hook kind of nose hooking a man's jelly worm and just and letting it drop and lift and drop and kind of shake up like, and that's when things started kind of accelerating. I'd say probably 7th or 8th grade. We were really getting crazy like that.
So you guys were a little more advanced. I started to figure it out later. Early 20s is when I was like, I know how to get fish to bite now. Like I know what to do but at that age I was still turning and churning, and I thought you just hopped everything. Like if it was like a spinner bait or a jig or something like that, I kind of just went up, threw stuff down, up through, but I didn't piece together the finesse angle. I was still trying to power fish Pennsylvania.
Yeah. From the jelly worm, or actually then kind of discovered the True Turn hooks. It was True Turn.
Yeah, that was the name.
They were True Turns, I think.
Yep.
But the hook that probably used more was a Mr. Twister keeper hook.
I have those. I still have those, dude.
So they got the metal, they got the wire guards on them that tie around the front of the hook, bend over and hook right behind the barb. It's a wire guard. So it was the Mr. Twister keeper hook. Started using them because they were a lot more weedless, bigger hook. And from the man's jelly worm to the man's auger tail to the culprit worm, I think.
That's where we're consistent. We figured out soft plastics in this area, worms.
Yeah. It took a minute to realize that you could catch them on things like a spinner bait and a crankbait. So this here, that's my PB. Probably it was the year between 8th and 9th grade. So I think 80, 85-ish, something like 85.
On 8th and 9th grade, you'd have been, probably like mid 80s, 85-ish.
Yeah.
Sounds exactly right.
On a culprit worm, it was purple with a pink fire tail. Didn't realize that weightless with that keeper hook on it. And I didn't realize at the time, but that lake is trout stocked with rainbows. So maybe that had something to do with it.
What was
maybe
that
not.
one? What was that one?
That's 8. That's an 8-pound. It was,
That's
you know, back then, back then you didn't really have the catch and release thing. That wasn't, you know, they didn't have skin mounts or replicas,
Right.
I
No,
should say.
I understand that. I mean,
So
in hindsight, when I let mine go, and now that I think about it, that stretch of the canal was stocked with trout for 50 years, where I caught my big one.
that's
Always
why they're
trout.
big.
It's where
That's why they're big.
everybody fishes for trout there.
And the rod, I still have it.
Yeah, nice, man. Look at you.
You're not going to gain
Player.
an appreciation
Look at you.
for
What
it.
a player. That's 85.
Yeah, this rod, this is a 4-foot rod, and it's a used to say it on here, but it's worn off. It said Master Boron C. I don't even know who made this rod, but
Dude,
I
that's
was living
awesome.
I was living in Dallas, Texas for a very brief period when I was in 4th grade with my dad.
Yeah.
And I remember I traded my ugly stick combo. I had an ugly stick rod and a Shakespeare reel. I don't remember. Maybe it's Shakespeare or a Cardinal reel. And I traded some weird weirdo that came up to me my combo for 2 of his. And one was like this Lew's rod with this plastic handle on it. I still have that. And then this thing, which is awesome, still an awesome little trout rod. But they were the 2 rods I had and at that time. And that's what I caught that 8-pounder on.
Yeah, that's sweet. So yeah, mine came on like I said, a rhino rod, Zebco.
Yeah.
Zebco rhino rod with Abu. I still have it. It's probably in the closet over there. I cut it into sections because that was
rod?
my dad's. Yeah.
Why?
Well, see that rod? That was my dad's fly rod when he was a kid in the 40s.
Oh, okay.
So I was going to frame my rod that I caught my PB on just like that in the shadow box. And I was going to put I have the frog. I was going to put the frog, the reel, and the rod in 3 sections because that's what I did for a living. That's what I do for a living, custom framing. So, that's what I was going to do with it. But then COVID came and I never got around to
what do you mean?
getting the framing done.
Well,
I lost my job at a frame store.
Ah, okay. Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
Sorry.
See, I have all that old stuff up there.
Yeah.
Like my uncle's old reels, like I found in an attic years ago, and like that's all that's all where is it? That's all Abu Garcia line from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
You know, and like I think that's the first bait caster right there. That's from like 1902 or something crazy.
Oh yeah, I can see it now. Fucking blind as a bat, bro. Oh yeah, look, that's what you look like.
That's because you're
pretty old.
Gen Xer now, man. That happened to me about, I want to say, mid 40s. I started like looking at my phone going, what's wrong with my phone?
Yeah. My phone's broke.
Why can't I see this stuff? And like tying knots and stuff now.
All
right. So let's do
Next
one
topic.
more thing this is one thing that people like, I think. So we got to give them this. All right. So my favorite way to catch bass doesn't mean that it's like my most productive way to catch bass. Like, do you have a way that is like if there's a cartoon version of you and he catches bass and like you're just pulling them in all day, they're like a way that you just think is the most fun way to catch them? Like, you know, it might not be your most productive way, but when that bite's going, that's like the fun. You don't have.
I mean, honestly, like I could sit here and just close my eyes and imagine a day catching them on top water, or a day catching them on a jig, or a day catching them on a crankbait, which I don't hardly ever get to do. And just that, you know, or it's like a cold water crankbait where you're just winding it and the pause and it loads up. Like, I could sit here and think about or fishing a worm and you feel and you see your line go and you're like,
that's actually that's
you know, I can't
when you watch the line go.
Or pink floating worm where you can see you're throwing that worm and all of a sudden you kind of see the worm there and half the worm disappeared and then the worm's gone. You're like,
yeah. I think for
honestly,
me, though, I like a
there's
jerkbait. I like that. I like hearing the hooks rattle, even though it's like 30 yards out in the water. I swear I hear the hooks rattle when they T-bone it.
yeah.
When you're fishing a jerkbait, I like that bite.
I mean, and I just got into swim bait fishing this last year. I mean, that's a whole addiction in and of itself.
Yeah, I know.
And it's
Talk
thing.
to James Riley about that.
Yeah. That's a whole different thing. Don't do it.
He got bit by that bug. I sold all my swim bait stuff because I was wearing my shoulder out. I think I was buying stuff in because I was on that website Tackle Tour, and they turned me on to all that stuff. So I was throwing the decoy swim baits and stuff, and I was like, this hurts, and I'm not catching if I'm gonna catch big fish, I'm still gonna catch them on a frog or a jig. I wasn't there's you can't upsize where I live. You might. All right, let's put it this way: you'll get a bigger bite, but I'm willing to take more mids. You know what I mean, and not wear my shoulder out.
There's a time and a place, man.
I want to have
it's all part of the game. It's all part of the game. There's a time and a place.
James Riley, you versus James Riley in the octagon. The arthritis battle of the century.
I got to fish with him. We still never fished together. I'd love to fish.
You're kidding. James. I just assumed that was a given.
No.
Yeah. No, I told him I talked to you. He felt guilty. He's like, oh my God, tell him I said hi. I need to touch base with him.
Yeah. I don't hear from him. But there's a time and a place for the swim bait, Yeah. There's guys that only throw swim baits and that's their thing. That's cool. There's
I went
guys
after it hard for 2 winters with big soft body single hook. And I would get a couple real hard hits on it and not hook up. And I was just like, dude, I'm wearing my shoulder out doing this. But that's because I have shoulder issues, because that's what
Same. Oh yeah, man. Shot, bro.
From using saws and stuff.
Yeah, just
you work
done.
with your arms a ton.
Yeah.
And skateboarding and stuff like that.
No, it's like I said with swim baits. There's a time and a place. My first good bite on one was in a South Jersey Winter League tournament in this past February. Small pond, heavy pressure. Everybody's out there doing the same thing to get bites, because that's what we all do in these pressured South Jersey lakes.
Yep.
And we're all throwing little pointer 68s and traps and stuff like that. All the finesse stuff.
I've got a bunch of those in my bag.
Yeah, all the finessey stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to take credit. My buddy turned me on to it, and I actually saw him do it that morning. Get 4 good bites. 2 of them ended up being pickerel, but first thing in the morning. And I had one glide bait that I owned, a Chad Shad, that he sold me, thankfully, because they're hard to get.
Yeah.
And by the way,
talk to James.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If you need one.
No, I've got plenty, bud. I've got more. I got more than I've thrown so far. The addiction hits hard, man. It can. Yeah. You could spin out, and there's a lot of guys that do.
Yeah. Again, and they're like toys too, because now you're really getting something, for your money, that you're big and you get to look at it and.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I caught a 5.8 that day, right underneath. Well, I say underneath, but in an area where somebody had been camped for a half hour, and I talked to him afterwards. He's like, I could see him on live scope. I could see him there. Oh, hold on, I got a call.
Yeah, that fish was smart, Brian. And then you put something so big in front of it that it was like, all right, I'm gonna take a risk on my life on this one, because this could be a big payoff.
It was a different look from what everybody else was doing, and it triggered a big bite. I fished a tournament last weekend, and I don't know, 15 boats, 16, 18 boats, 4 bass were caught in the entire event. And about 5.5, 6 hours into it, I was just like, all right, if I'm not going to catch nothing, I might as well not catch nothing throwing a big bait. Let me break. And I brought all my glide baits. I said, let me start. You know what? Half the freaking baits in here I haven't even cast yet. Let me just start throwing them around. And I had a feeling that the lake that we were on has a lot of big gizzard shad and has a lot of big bait. So I felt like that big bait could be a player. So I just went to throwing a big bait for the last couple of hours. Oh, damn it. Hold on.
It's all right, Brian.
Give me 1 second. I gotta.
No, man.
This,
I'll edit this out anyway, because don't worry about it.
And
there
action.
You are.
But I decided to throw the big baits for the rest of the day, and I got my only bite. End up getting third.
Was that? Why wasn't some of those recent photos I saw of you? Were they with the? It
was a week ago.
The two bigs that I just saw, like in the last 3 days. Yeah, I think it was.
Yesterday I fished with Greg De Palma, and we.
No, that was the picture I saw. I saw the ones with Greg.
Yeah, and we caught him up pretty good.
Yeah, it looked like it.
Flipping a jig.
All right. It's 1985. Rambo, Red Dawn, New Jersey, Atomic War. The only person left is Brian.
Oh boy.
You need to feed yourself, and the only thing that hasn't been irradiated are bass. So all food is poison except for bass, and you're the last man on earth, and you need to catch them. What are you going to throw to survive?
In 85?
No, I just like throwing the 1985 reference in there. That's when nuclear war was going to end everything. No, now.
Yeah, I'm going to throw dumbass Senko.
You got to feed yourself. But you can only do it one way.
Senko. Yeah, I hate to say it, but that's the
100%. Yep, boringest way to fish. But if I had to put food on the table for my kids,
Senko sent fishing back 20 years. We were on a path of enlightenment, and then the Senko came along, and now everyone can catch one and hook fish all day long.
Yeah, and everyone can catch like bigs.
Yeah,
like a Senko is not like it doesn't discriminate. Like big fish like it and little fish like it.
Dude, I don't get it, but like I was last year, I went out on a guide trip with Pete. He was taking some dude out that's a Bass U fan, and the guy bought a guide trip with Pete, came in from Minnesota and wanted me to be there. I was like, yeah, sure, shit, get me out of working for a day. And we went down this one bulkhead and we're catching smallmouth, 14, 15-inch smallmouth.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the size of them, even smaller. And Pete gave the dude a tail weighted Senko to throw, and I had a Ned rig there. And I swear, dude, I mean, like we were both going back and forth with the bites, but my Ned rig fish were hooked right here, and those tail weighted 5-inch tail weighted Senko for 14-inch smallmouth with the itty bitty mouths were choking a Senko. Don't make no damn sense. But yet you're hooking the Ned rig fish out here. I don't know. There's something about it. They devour it.
It's the bulk of the body. It's the bulk of the body, and there's something about that body shape that just must have. I don't know what it is, but I've watched fish. Like if you're out when it's like when there's tons of visibility, and you can see cruisers. You could throw it like 15 feet in front of them, and you can see them like what was that? You know what I mean? There's something about the way it hits the water, but it's not an exciting way to fish. And Texas rigged, it's not exciting. Wacky rigged, it's not exciting. I don't know what it is. It does work. And if I did have to feed my children, I'd want a bag of those, I think.
Yep.
All right. So
you can flip it. You can throw it in shallow water. You can throw it deep, tail weight it. I mean, that's
if we want to break with the Senko, you could cut off a third and use it for a Ned rig, even though then it's not a Senko anymore. But I mean, it is that versatile.
Yep.
You could punch
Dude,
it.
I saw some guys hooking it to the back of a jig, wacky style, smashing them.
Yeah. I've
It's
seen that.
I think I stopped fishing for a year after I saw that.
Yeah, I know it's the ugliest thing you've ever seen, but there's just
I was offended.
Gary Yamamoto, like, I don't know what he stumbled on there with that, but
I think he did a deal. I think he did a deal on the down low with Satan.
man,
You know what I'm saying?
dude, the width of it, the length of it, like, and people are like, oh, 6-inch you can upsize, and 4-inch, little one. The 5-inch to me, like, that's the one that, like, it gets everything. The 5-inch gets all of them. All right, so here's another window into your fishing soul. If I told you, I'll get you out of work for every day of your life to go fishing for a part of the day, okay? Just for a part of the day. But you have to pick the same 4 hours that you're going to get to fish for the rest of your life. Like, if you pick the evening, you're never fishing another morning. If you pick the morning, you're never fishing another evening. What if you could take one 4-hour window, but then we said to you, Brian, you get this. Like, work will accommodate you, your family will accommodate you, the world will accommodate you. These 4 hours are yours for the rest of your life. You just have to pick the same 4 for the rest of your life. You have a 4-hour window that you would pick?
Daybreak.
Daybreak. Well,
yeah.
Okay, but you got to pick from numbers because you don't get daybreak.
Well,
you've got to say like 9 to 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say 5 to 9, 100%.
5 to 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, my confidence lies a little later. I would say like probably.
That's because you sleep late.
Dude, I wake up early because I'm old now. You know how old people your eyes you like.
But you go to the bathroom, you stretch, you read the paper, eat some Wheaties. I'm talking about being on the water when it's still dark, and being on the water when it's dark, and watching the life of the lake go from being where it's at in darkness to the sun just starting to get that false like daybreak coming.
Yeah.
Shit lights up, dude. And I don't care what time of year. Like even in wintertime when water's, when people might think, well, the bite will be better when the sun's up. No, there's still, especially in wintertime, still an early morning bite.
That's some good insight because I've applied what you just said to a lot of my winter fishing where I still think I've got to wait for when I would be comfortable if I was a fish. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's
the 1 hour that I would say I would, if there was 1 hour that I could never fish again in my life, it would be 11 o'clock a.m.
Yeah, it does shut off then.
There's an early morning bite. Yeah. And then there's
11,
and then there's the late bite. But at 11 o'clock,
you just changed the question and made it even better because that is like 11 o'clock. You almost never. You're just like
might as well check emails or
get some more coffee in your system.
Stretch your line out. You know what I mean? Just do some laundry. I don't know.
Yeah,
something.
Good point, man. All right.
Yeah,
Brian, do you have something that you can point to as your greatest victory on the water? And by on the water, it doesn't necessarily have to mean like actual fishing, but it could be on the water. Like, let's say in your fishing life, you have something that's like you can point to as like something where you're, like you're going to give yourself credit and you're not going to be humble and self-effacing. And you're like this was one of my strongest moments as an angler.
This hurts because I can say I don't think I can. I really don't.
Okay, if that's hard for you, okay, let's say that's hard, and you can't think of your greatest victory, personal or in the industry. If you're not, go ahead.
Well, the one thing that, the one thing that. And right now I don't have a glass boat. I did for a number of years. And I might be getting one again soon. Right now I've got the electric only boat, but I used to run the Delaware River a lot for a number of years. And then then we got a campground and the kids and spent the next, 15 years with them. And it's at the point where it's all right, it's about time to get a boat again. And I'm very proud of the decisions I made to put them before fishing, because at the end of the day, like, to go out and fish a tournament is a little bit selfish, right? And for me to deny my family a weekend down the campground because I want to go fish a freaking tournament, it's a little bit self-centered. So anyhow, but I did run the river for a number of years. It's an extremely tricky fishery, body of water with the currents and the high tide, low tide fluctuations.
Yeah.
The amount that those fish move, like, it's mind boggling. You could have caught the fish 6 hours ago right there, and now it's dry land, or this cove, this pocket, this area that held them a week ago now doesn't have a single fish, and they're 10 miles away. They're 10 freaking miles away.
Yeah.
And they could do that just by backstroking or flapping their wings without even swimming, just riding the current, the 6 mile an hour current. Anyhow, there was a run, on the Delaware where I had a good feel for the migrations of the fish. There were some areas that I found that nobody else knew about, which is really hard to do. And I kept them secret for a number of years. And
that's not easy to do either. You want to tell
Yeah. I don't even tell Ike, he knew I had something, but there was no need for him to know where. And so I would say, like, that was when I was, like, really kind of focused on figuring a place out and dialed in like that. The last few years I've been running around a lot, fishing places an hour and a half, 2 hours away, just trying to learn these new bodies of water in Pennsylvania and North Jersey and stuff. And fishing, like, every tournament I've fished this year, except for the St. Lawrence that I went to with Mike, every one I'm going in blind, and without any pre-fish at all. And the results show, honestly. Every once in a while you can go in blind, stumble across it, and then dial it in and boom, 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 boom. But for the most part, you go in completely blind. It's like 3 hours left in the day where I'm like, oh, this is the deal. And you run out of time. So
yeah, there's something
that's where I'm at.
This is my philosophy. This is on one of the things you're saying. I feel like northeastern bass fishermen are particularly adept at getting a nose for the weird things that fish do, because we have to fit. Like, we grew up fishing in desperation a lot, and I think, like, we're pretty quick on our feet as a group, people from this area. Would you agree?
Yeah, as kids growing up, every one of our through middle school into high school, even when we weren't driving and our moms were dropping us off at places, all of our places were private property, and we were trespassing, and that's where the good fishing is in Jersey, and it still is. And talk about being quick on your feet. You got to be ready to run.
And a lot of hair rollers and rolling pins.
That's right. You got to be, ready to come up with a quick excuse or know when it's time to freaking beat feet. And
Well, one thing that you said in that, though, that I thought was profound was recognizing, and I think you get this a little bit with maturity, but recognizing, like, splitting your time between your family and fishing. And that says a lot about the kind of person you are, because you weren't thinking just about yourself and one thing that really lights you up, which is fishing. You were thinking about your family, and that, like, that time's important too. Like, it's not easy to be a fisherman, because it's not like you go play tennis with someone for, 2.5 hours and then come home. Like, it's a commitment, and you're out all day, and then you come home and
all day.
you're kind of wiped when you get home too. And the kids are like, Dad, let's do this. And you're like,
Yeah. Yesterday I fished a tournament and it was fun. Had a great day. We won, but I missed my youngest son, Logan, who's 17. I missed his marching band competition. He's a high school senior. He's the drum major, which means he's the leader of the marching band. And, and I sacrificed going to his event and they won, which was a big deal. They're the town I'm in is a one town school, and they beat a much bigger. The next, the second place team is, I don't know, 10 times the size school. So it was a big win. It was a big win for him, and it sucks that I missed that. I'm kind of bummed about that. But I have, you talk about what's my greatest fishing accomplishment, and it's hard to come up with. But my legacy will always be my family, my kids. And
I love your answer, because I saw that answer coming. Like I start to bubble up in you, because I saw your eyes sort of glaze over, and I was like, he really thinks about them, and he knows how much fishing can interfere with family life. Like, we love it, and our families know that we love it, and that it doesn't replace them at all. It's not, we'd give it up tomorrow for them. It's just that, like, they know that we're a little bit OCD about it, and they want us to be happy, but we'd sacrifice it for them. But like, he knows that, like, that's your thing, and you got to take your time, your chances when you get them. And you'll pass that lesson on to him, that if he knows you love him, that's worth. If I know my parents love me, you don't have to come to my tennis tournament. Like, we're good. When I get home, I'll give you a hug and we'll have dinner.
Yeah, and one little follow up to that. I think there's a balance in everything. Everything's, there's a certain yin and yang that goes on with everything. Nothing's all good and nothing's all bad. Even when, without getting too deep into that. When I grew up, it was single mom, and she was at work. She never came to a single baseball game. Put the glove on the handlebars and off I went to practice baseball games, hockey games, everything. I don't think my mom saw, and she's the sweetest lady in the world. She's, honestly, but she just, didn't have the time, and that wasn't the times, whereas today the parents are very, very involved, which is good. I think that's a massive progression in society, but some take it too far. Some show up to every game and record it and lecture the kids every car ride home and pound, So
my son started street hockey, and he gets real embarrassed easily. I mean, he's only 10 years old, but he'll get embarrassed. So there's days where I'll take him to street hockey, and I'll just go sit in the car so he thinks he's there alone with just the other guy. Because a lot of the parents leave, and I'm like, dude, like, I'll say to him, like, when no one's around, I'm like, dude, you want me just to wait in the car? Like, you'll know I'm over there, but like, no one else will know your parents here. I'm trying to give him some of that, a little bit of that security in himself. Like,
and I think, I think times are better now. It's a tough argument to make these last 2-3 years tops. But overall, I think the kids are a lot smarter, a lot more adjusted and accepting of other people. I think there's just so many things and so many ways that they're better.
I think the world's going to be okay because of our kids, not because of us.
Right. And
I mean,
if there's something that is lost, is a little bit of, the ability to cope, the ability to figure things out, and because we hover too much. I think we hover a little too much, and it's not a bad thing to not be there once in a while. Let them figure something out. Let them, find a ride home once in a while, and how about a little problem solving? How about a little, deal with adversity?
Get a flat tire on your bike. Try walking it home for 2 miles, just pushing it by the handlebars and not riding it. Because I mean, how many times did you have stuff go wrong when you were a kid? And you're like, you know what I mean? Or like you're really far from your parents' house, and like your wheel falls off on your bike. You take a spill, and you're like, oh, you gotta like walk home with it. You get home like 2 hours later. You're like, fix it.
Yeah. So it's, like I said, it's just a balance. Overall, I think we've progressed forward quite a bit.
Yeah.
I look at my kids.
That's another good point you've made tonight. I really do think the kids are all right.
I do.
Have you? Because one way is when you try to help them with the homework.
And when you ever see criticism, who's it coming from?
Old
people our age.
Yeah.
Who the fuck raised them? We did.
Yeah.
So what the hell you go criticize a kid? You raised them, idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
if
call them snowflakes, call them this, that. Well, guess what? It's our generation that raised them. And if they don't have, any work ethic, well, that's because times are good and you didn't instill that in your kid.
Yeah.
I don't know what this has to do with fishing, but
it does. It does because
it does.
Well, it does. Like my kids, I'll take them fishing, and like they think it's kind of like a video game, and I'll be like, "No, dude, like this is part of it. Like this is the payoff. Like you're supposed to suffer. You're supposed to think it's too hot. You're supposed to, you know what I mean? You're supposed to be squinting because I have like, my kids are like, even though like I'm mostly Italian and my wife's mostly Irish, I feel like I got Irish kids because like they're like in the sun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you're supposed to feel like that because you're supposed to, have those moments because then the payoff. And then you're like, that's what we do it for. All right. Well, this was awesome talking to you. I don't want to keep you all night. You have things to do.
I do. I gotta call Pete Glusick back, talk about Tuesday night's Bass U, and our guest, I gotta call him back. He's a swim bait maker, very famous swim bait maker.
We won't spill it here. Sweet.
Yeah. So
feeds the sickness. All right. So quick question then.
Shoot. Yeah. Tear it up.
Your past self, is there something, if we could go back in time, you could take a time machine? No, it could be lightweight advice for yourself. I don't want any advice. Go back to yourself in the 80s with one. You could take back one tidbit to help yourself where you are now, as far as like.
Yeah.
Just one tidbit.
Yeah. Learn how to let things go. Negative things that happen, like stop fighting them battles.
So yeah. So if you'd gotten that message from yourself as a kid, you think you'd have been a little easier on yourself, maybe?
I think I would have spent less time going down a negative spiral of whatever. Just learning how to not keep fighting certain battles that are just anyhow. For me, the last few years, I've gotten a lot better in coping and dealing with things like that and letting it slide and focusing on positive and moving forward.
Nice, man.
So,
all right. Well, I got to thank you for doing this because we didn't know each other well, but I think we know each other better now.
Yeah.
And I'd like to do this again with you. If you ever need someone to go out and check out that rad aluminum boat, I might know someone.
Okay. All right. Where are you at in
PA? I'm in Bucks County.
Okay.
Do you know where Yardley is?
Yeah. Yeah. My buddy John McGraw used to live in Yardley, but who is, by the way, an artist, a graphic design artist. He worked for Lennox and designed China. Now he works for the U.S. Mint doing the Lord's work.
What's that?
Doing the Lord's work,
Yeah. Yeah. Genitalia, boobs.
And by the way, I want you to look it up, see if you can find Humanoids from the Deep.
Oh no, I'm gonna do that like now. I'm gonna go Google it and see what's going on with that. But
Yeah,
dude, this is like really cool talking to you. I mean, we grew up the same time. I think we get the same time in the same area. So we kind of went through a lot of the same, struggles as anglers in this area. We had to figure stuff out for ourselves a lot. I think that's the defining trait.
I agree.
We didn't have a lot of information catered to us. So
no, had to bait your own hook.
Yeah.
That would be my advice. Bait your own hook, guys.
Yeah. I make my kids do that. Dude, it was great talking. We'll do this again sometime.
Yes.
All right, Brian. Have a great
Cheers,
night.
my man.
It's not stressful, dude. Not stressful. Not stressful.
Not stressful. Right. Humanoids from the deep. Good. I'm putting it on. All right,
brother. Me too.
Later,
man.